So we need to do a better job of teaching people what the Bible is. Biblical literacy is, which used to be a normal part of school curriculum, is no longer being done. I was never a big fan of the government teaching people what the Bible was in the first place, so let's just not worry that the schools don't do it, but let's do a better job. I think biblical literacy is a key part. We've got to teach people not to treat the Bible as magic, as a spell book. You know, like flip it open, stick your finger in, and that's the Word of God. But teach people, give them some honest handles on what Scripture is. We need to connect people to prayer. How do I actually say words to Jesus? Prayerlessness in our churches is rampant. And I want to suggest to you that's a key piece. Some basic stuff around who is God, what is a person, what is sin, how does Jesus deal with our brokenness, what does a restored life look like. Start painting a picture for people of what wholeness in Jesus looks like. Sometimes our imagination stops with people deciding something about Jesus, and it doesn't go on to what does full adulthood in Christianity look like? What does a meat eater rather than a milk drinker look like? I've actually developed some materials on this that you can download on the Free Methodist Church in Canada website. But you know, some other places to get it. Alpha does a good job of helping people understand some faith fundamentals. Alpha can be used effectively in evangelism, but the truth is, when you have someone who's coming to your Alpha, they're probably not also going to the Buddhist Alpha and the Muslim Alpha on Thursday night. They've kind of like zeroed it in. They're at least somewhere maybe in that -5 to -4 category. And so Alpha can be a helpful way to help them move forward. It can also just be a fairly helpful intake mechanism. I don't know. That's my off the top of the dome list. What else do you guys think would belong in sort of a conceptual or behavioral growth kind of category? Yes?
How do you categorize personal testimonies of victory with the Lord?
Right.
Like their experience of how the Lord is working in their lives.
Yes, I think that one of the most profound things we can do, and this is like literally tomorrow afternoon at 3:45, Starbucks in the chapters, I'm talking to my son and 2 other men who are going to be baptized. So the invitation toward baptism, we always ask, why do you believe in God? Why do you believe in Jesus? And the work of helping them have a testimony that doesn't make the church the hero or a small group leader a hero, but makes Jesus the hero. Getting them to talk less theologically and more of the stuff of their life is that the power of testimony is unbelievably important. And helping people be clear on what their testimony is unbelievably important. And again, this is where I see us trifling too, is a lot of us think that our testimony is something that happened to us when we were 5. I'm hoping that your testimony happened, say, within the last 7 days to 30. And I think it's the power of those testimonies. So if I was to encourage any church to do anything on a regular basis, invite people to share their testimony. Yes, make room for some divine healing, but make sure that there's a healthy balance of also how I recovered from my anger issues and how I learned how to connect back up with my son and keep it normal too. Because this is what I find God does. He is a miracle-working, power-encounter God, but He's also He's also the God in the 400 years of silence. He's also in the stuff of every day. So invite people to talk about and to recognize God at work in their life. That's one of the key things. We're not trained in our culture to recognize spiritual events when they take place anymore. Okay? And it's just a normal part of growing up Canadian. A guy named Richard Beck wrote a book called Revival Won't Scratch, and he's got one of the best things that I've read in the last little bit. He calls us the Scooby-Doo generation. We're the Scooby-Doo generation because in a typical early version of Scooby-Doo, the gang would get in their mystery van and they would go to a hotel in the edge of a forest, and it would be haunted, or there's a giant alligator monster or something that's like terrorizing the hotel. And then they get chased in and out of the doors in the hallway, and eventually they catch the monster, they pull the mask off, and it turns out it's just Old Man Jenkins. And he would have got away too, but we're mentally kids. And that's just every week, like mystery, spooky thing that's happened to me I can't explain. I just tear the mask off, and it's just this. We've demystified the world for each other. And yet we keep having spiritual experiences. And so one of the things that we can help teach our people is to recognize when the Spirit is actually working. When something supernatural is happening. So I think that's an important practice as a part of it. And I'm not saying that's part of the curriculum, like sort of like, you want to teach people how to tell their testimony, recognize the power of God among them, but also just make it a regular part of your life as a church. And work with your people. Work with your people.
What advice would you have in us engaging with our neighbor, our non, who is also a cheater, a trifler, we're supposed to work? I mean, it's easy to point out in Christianity where we have it, but the reality is in the world there's a lot of it there too.
Right.
And,
oh yes. Excellent point. I think that's a brilliant question. So, who do midwives tend to practice with?
Well, they criticize doctors.
Well, they criticize doctors, yeah. But they tend to practice on the pregnant. That's a tendency I notice. And to be honest, anything other than that would be weird. So I want to suggest to you that the other thing that we have to prioritize in our practice of spiritual midwifery is spending time with people that we notice are spiritually waking up in some way. So what makes this different than friendship evangelism we're talking about is, first off, if you become a community of testimonies, then when you tell your testimony and it doesn't really work, doesn't really land for the person you're talking to, you've got 15 other examples in your community you're already aware of. Like, you need to talk to my friend Glenn. He went through the exact same thing, and his life is just totally different. And if you're at all interested, I can have coffee. But one of the things I want to suggest to you, this is again a weird thing that we do. We assume that everybody in our life wants to be on this journey. So don't turn every friendship into a potential, that's Amway thinking, okay? I'm sorry if anybody's in here in Amway. I'm sorry for a lot of this multiple, almost like multi-levels. It's almost like, anyway. Don't turn every friendship into this. Prioritize the people in your life that you notice are spiritually awakening. Don't put on yourself to create that at spiritual awakening. That would be the equivalent of midwives going out there and getting people pregnant. Okay? That should be against the law. I think it is. And if it isn't, it should be. So one of the things that I want to suggest to you is don't wish this on people. Don't. Let the Spirit do the Spirit's job.
Praise God.
That doesn't mean we don't invite them. It doesn't mean that we don't engage at the human level. But I want to suggest one minor shift to our plan needs to be, let's prioritize those who we see are spiritually awakened. Because there are lots of those people. And that, what I just said to you has been one of the hardest things for me to deal with in my life as an evangelist. Is I wish this story landed for more people that I know, that I genuinely care about. But it isn't. And they're not interested. And I need to prioritize the people that are interested. And sometimes, those are sometimes people that it actually cost me something to be with friend because they're just not normally part of my social circle. So, I think I don't feel like I did justice to your question. I think it's a better question than I gave a response to. But this is also something that as a church community, you're going to have to sort out for yourselves, because noticing that people are spiritually awakening is an acquired skill. It's an acquired skill, and you need to practice it together as a group of people. And as a group of people, there's going to be some cultural things, some cultural signals that only you people who are in your place or do the kind of work you do are part of that social segment in Canada will be first to pick up on that I might not, and vice versa, my people may look a little bit. So there's a skill, there's an artistry here to the answer to that question that we have to perfect in community and perfect through prayer and through the power of the Holy Spirit. God illuminates this to you. And so when you pick up on those cues, following those is a key important thing. We're going to maybe dig into that a little bit more in a second.
Well, I guess the dilemma that I always face is unconditional love and friendship. So, have a neighbor, invite him over for dinner. The hope is that he'll come to Christ.
Yes.
But I'm also realizing it can't be a conditional friendship. It's conditional on the fact that you will accept Christ, and then I'll be your friend for life. If not, I'm going to get tired. I'm going to end this and find somebody else, right? And that's the temptation. But then I also understand it can't happen. It shouldn't be that. Like if I love my neighbor, it's got to be unconditional.
So whatever.
Again, it's like dealing with maybe.
So what I think pollutes that. Sorry, go. Now I'm going over time. It's okay. That was the goal. I don't even know why I want to really. So in my life, the reason that became a dilemma is that I was not able to differentiate between those who are spiritually awakening and those who aren't. Can I be friends with people who aren't spiritually awakening? You bet your $1. And I don't have to put my ugly fingerprints all over that relationship and twist it and pervert it into something awful.
Yes.
So just be friends with your friends, okay? And if you ever notice them spiritually awakening, pay attention. And if you don't force it.
What if you befriended and then you find out that you don't enjoy hanging out with them?
Then don't do anything. Yeah, literally, be friends with them, okay? And just be normal. So if you don't enjoy their company, then fine. But if you notice that you're not noticing anybody, if you notice that you're not making those kinds of connections or seeing those kinds of people, ask yourself some deeper questions. And also just stop. Don't force people. Only deal with people who are spiritually awake. That's what I would say. And then prioritize them. So if you're going to do anything that is goal-oriented or engagement-oriented or kind of fits in with an agenda. It's that this person wants to talk to me about these things. Okay? Make sure that's present. If it's not, you are doing something weird that's going to actually backfire. And it actually creates nones and dones if you can't practice this with skill. Does that make sense? And so it's very fine-tuning we're talking about here, and I would have to know you better. And I'd have to know your heart. You'd have to know my heart. And I'd have to know some of your neighbors. Again, I'm not talking about friendship evangelism, you and your neighbor. I'm talking about you, your church, all the people they know, all the people you know, and all of it mushed together. This isn't just you one-on-one, okay? And so there's a discernment piece here. There's no easy formula. But be serious about it because it actually matters. How you answer this question actually matters. Yeah. Okay, Kevin, I think that's it. Do you believe that the Holy Spirit matters for those moments? Yeah. And so there is a feel to it. But sometimes it's just listening to what Jesus is saying. So on Tuesday, after this talk, I went to the hospital to visit one of the people from our church. And when I left the hospital, the Lord reminded me as I was walking out that I have a friend named Jamie who's in the hospital.